All right, I said 35 likes in 2 days, and you guys killed it. So, of course, I'm a man of my word. So, more Eden Zero content coming to you guys. I'm still not fully trusting, so let's shoot for 40 in 2 days. 40 likes within 2 days, and I'll do regular. Like I'll put Eden Zero into my main, flow. But that being aside, I did want to bring you guys this video explaining ether gears. This is actually a video I've wanted to do for so long, just because I feel like ether gears are such a cool power system that Eden Zero does have. And before I really get into explaining it, yeah, I kind of have to start with what is ether in general. Ether, essentially, as you can probably assume, is just the main power source of power in Eden Zero. It does naturally manifest within like nature, living things, as well as machines, which is interesting that machines can come to naturally harbor ether inside of them. As for what exactly the power is, for all intents and purposes, it's basically magic. It's funny, it's basically magic, but I would consider it magic that runs on like a different wavelength, seeing as it can be affected by EMPs, or it seems like any kind of like electromagnetic distortion, I would assume would probably affect ether in some way, shape, or form, which is pretty interesting, seeing as typically there isn't usually a cross or a bridge between magic as and like technology or electricity, all like that. So that is kind of interesting. But ether gear is essentially a power that utilizes the ether in someone's body to like manifest and take on certain effects. And of course, this could be a variety of things that we've already seen in the show, such as like Shiki's gravity manipulation, Homura's ability to form swords, Weiss's ability to reconfigure machines. All kinds of things can be used with a ether gear. It's kind of like a more refined way of using your ether energy. I would imagine that there are probably people that have access to ether energy but don't have an ether gear, so there is no quite refined way to use it. If you remember Rebecca way back when they first got to the Eden Zero, when she was bathing in that bath, and it was like kind of activating her flow of ether, and she just shot ether just straight up into the air, like kind of like that. That's what I imagine, like someone without a ether gear, unrefined control of it, without being able to really direct it in a certain way. So ether gears basically allow you to use your ether gear more constructively instead of such like a crude overall way. And it's kind of weird because the way you get ether gear is kind of not really that explained, despite how long the story has been going, which is very interesting to me. It kind of feels like it's been left really ambiguous, just for the just 'cause I feel like they're going to fill it in later. But so far, the only way that we know of to awaken your ether gear is
Push-ups, sit-ups, and plenty of juice.
by having a master, basically having someone who had previously had that ether gear that is going to teach you directly how to use it, which that way can take, it varies on how long. It took Weiss a super long time to learn how to use his, versus Shiki, where he learned his in about a month. So like the time kind of varies depending on your master as well as you yourself. The other way we know of is that you can just awaken it naturally. It's like you could just randomly one day you can just wake up and be able to fully control your ether gear. I mean, it'll probably take practice just to be able to use efficiently, but that is still a way to use it. And another way is, I don't believe we've seen it so far in the story, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but another way to use your ether gear, or to get a ether gear, I should say, would be if it was implanted into you. As we do know, there are ways to extract ether or extract ether from things. So I feel like logic would dictate, if you could extract ether from things, you could then also implant it in something else. So you could get an ether gear that way. That way it's kind of more of a theory in my opinion. I wouldn't say that that's the hard truth, but I'd assume that's possible. If you don't agree, that's totally fine. At this point, if you are hardcore anime only and you want like literally zero spoilers, I'm not going to be spoiling any plot stuff, just only things related to ether gear. But if you're not feeling any of that, this would be your moment to leave if you want to. Other than that, I appreciate your stand, but we're going to continue on. As for weaknesses for the ether gear, it was crazy because we didn't have any for such a long time, but then we found out that one of the major weaknesses of the ether gear is if your ether cannot circulate through your body properly, you won't be able to use your ether gear, such as if your hands are bound together. Like if they're tied together, your ether can't circulate and you won't be able to use it. Now this one is weird to me because I feel like it depends on where your ether gear is. Like take for Rebecca's cat leaper, hers is on her leg, so I'm not for sure if her arms are tied, she wouldn't be able to use her ether gear. I feel like it would have to be more so just straight I feel like it would have to be for that exact part of the body. So if your ether gear is in your leg, I feel like it would be, if your legs are bound, then you wouldn't be able to use it. I feel like if you tie Rebecca's arms, it wouldn't affect her ether gear in her legs. That's kind of my opinion. Because if that was the case, then that means like any binding anywhere would stop the flow of your ether gear. Because if binding Rebecca's hands would stop the ether gear on her legs, so that means that like binding Shiki's legs would then limit his ether gear on his arms. You see what I'm saying? How that kind of doesn't make any sense to me. That's just what I think personally. Again, personal theory. If you don't agree, that is fine. We don't have like all the information on ether gear, so a lot of it, or not a lot of it, but there is room to speculate in certain parts. Now, of course, there are like individual weaknesses for each individual ether gear. Like obviously, if you have a fire ether gear and someone has a water one, that is an innate weakness that you would have, but it's not necessarily a universal one. I'm more so going for universal weaknesses in this one. As for types of ether gear, I don't want to go into like literally every single type, but just kind of an overall broad standing. There are ether gears that do more or less enhance your own ability to fight, such as like with like Shiki's gravity or Homura's swords. Those ones that are more so for reinforcing your own ability to fight. And then there's another one I kind of classify as more like supporty type ether gears, where it's like Rebecca's can enhance her ability to fight, but Cat Leaper has so much more of like overall utility in the story that it can do lots of other things more than just enhance her ability to fight, or even Weiss for that matter. Like if we want to go like on a smaller scale, Weiss's ability to just reconfigure machines isn't necessarily enhancing himself outside of having Arsenal, but it just in a broad sense without Arsenal, it is more for like a utility aspect. And then recently in the manga, we did learn that in the Aoi Cosmos, I believe that's how you say that, in the Aoi Cosmos, that ether gear there specializes, or most ether gears there specialize in disrupting the flow of your opponent's ether, thereby kind of throwing them off or turning them into something, or just basically it's almost like a debuff. Imagine like there's an enemy or an opponent that specializes in debuffs. So like, you know, we have normal ether gears that we've seen throughout the series that are focused on enhancing your own ability, almost like buffing yourself. And then there's these guys that specialize in debuffing you, which is the only way to overcome that. Or I guess the one innate weakness that has is if you can, I guess, overpower their own ether gear with your own, or just maintain the flow or regulate your own flow of ether, then they wouldn't necessarily be able to disrupt you so easily, which is kind of interesting that they have these different kinds of ether gears all in the same story. Of course, it sounds like with ether gear, with any amount of training, I imagine like a super high master level ether gear user probably won't have as many weaknesses as say your novice ether gear user, seeing as like with so much learning and mastery over it, you can like overcome the whole being tied up weakness as well as the whole disrupting weakness. And as we've seen in shows across like anything, any amount of training can overcome innate an innate weakness if you train hard enough. So that factor is in Eden Zero as well. And overall, that's kind of really it for ether gears, at least for all the information that we have currently, outside of like some very small speculative stuff here and there. I overall think ether gear is a pretty dope power system. I kind of do enjoy how it's like that mixture of like technology and magic all in one kind of thing. So that is really, really dope to me. So if I had to pick a favorite ether gear in the series, it would probably either have to be like, I think it's like a tie, or not really a tie, but it would be between those two. I guess that is a tie. It would be either between Homura's ether gear. I'm super basic on one hand, or like just the basic of ether gear, being able to make swords and different type of weapons. It's always been really cool to me. Or on the other hand, Elsie or Justice's ether gear, the star drain thing, to be able to like take on a different form depending on the planet you're on, sounds like super dope. Kind of the whole like re-equip form change thing has always just been a really cool concept to me. But those would probably be my two favorites if I had to pick. So in the comments down below, let me know how you guys feel about ether gears. Let me know what your favorite one is. I am kind of curious to know what everybody thinks is their favorite ether gear. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you do want more ether gear content. Like I said, 40 in 2 days, because I'm still on the fence if you guys really want regular Eden Zero content. So 40 likes in 2 days if you guys do want that. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel if you do like, because that means there's going to be more Eden Zero content coming. So of course you would want to stick around for that. Other than that, you guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of it, and I will see you all in my next video.